Today's show will be a blast from the past as we look back at the top 5 most meaningful Washington Nationals since 2010, and I will say, one may surprise you.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, I am your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11 and as well as our show page at LO_Nationals. And of course, search up Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's on Apple, Spotify, and of course, over on YouTube for the video version of the podcast. Again, search up Locked On Nationals and hit that subscriber button. Later on in today's program, I think the Nationals might want to reunite with a former 2019 Washington National. In the name, it may surprise you, but also it might make sense. But does it? We'll discuss that in the third segment of the program today. In the second segment, I want the Washington Nationals to sign anybody who means anything to Major League Baseball. One guy that we have not covered is Jock Peterson. I think the fit makes a lot of sense for the Nationals for many different reasons, but the number one reason, he's a Major League caliber player, and we need to sign those. So we'll discuss him a little bit later on and kind of get into the fit for what the Washington Nationals really need as far as getting back into contention. So we'll have that discussion for you in the second segment. But first and foremost, we get into the top 5 most meaningful Washington Nationals since the year of 2010. And that year, well, Steven Strasburg made his debut. We'll discuss that. But today's episode is brought to you by the College Football Playoffs. And the College Football Playoffs are here, and you don't want to miss a moment of the action. The College Football Playoff presented by Allstate begins with 4 first-round games, December 20th and 21st on ESPN, ABC, TNT, and Max. Now we get into it with discussing and kind of ranking the top 5 most impactful Washington Nationals really over the last decade plus, but I kind of went since 2010. So I'm going to start off by saying this. I left Jason Worth off this list. And I think when you hear these 5 names, I think you'll understand why I think these guys are more meaningful and more impactful for the Nationals over this last decade plus. So start off with number 5, Ryan Zimmerman. Ryan Zimmerman is Mr. National. He is the guy who really kind of upstarted this organization. He was the first ever pick of the Washington Nationals, kind of the hometown kid. He was the first bright spot on a very bad team. Way back in 05, in 06, 07, 08, and 09, those teams were really, really bad. But if you kind of look into it, Ryan Zimmerman was always the steady, consistent guy. The Gold Glove caliber third baseman, silver slugger hitting kind of guy. Ryan Zimmerman was always there. I don't really need to explain why this guy makes this top 5. In fact, some people would probably say he should be a lot higher. But I think the 4 guys after this were just way more impactful. And I think Ryan Zimmerman, while he was always great, he was always really good, he kind of fell off past like 2017 a little bit. And I think some of these guys really in the World Series run meant a lot more. But it's funny I say World Series because this guy next in the list was not on the World Series team. Number 4, Bryce Harper. It's hard to leave Bryce Harper out of a list when you're curating the top impactful guys, whether it's meaningful or just simply the best overall player. I'm not a Bryce Harper guy. I think Bryce Harper, well, I'll save this conversation for a later date. But Bryce Harper was meaningful. He was impactful. He is why really the Washington Nationals got under a national kind of landscape. Like the reason why the Nationals are what they were is because of Bryce Harper. Getting Sunday Night Baseball, playing 8 o'clock on national primetime spots throughout the season. It was because of Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper meant a lot to this organization. It's really just beyond setting records and just being like that national spotlight where we didn't really get much of that outside of Steven Strasburg. Bryce Harper was kind of the first guy who really cultivated today's game. If you think about it now, Bryce Harper was always kind of booed and was kind of just the weird thorn in the thigh of Major League Baseball. That's at least what was happening as soon as he came into the game. The guy who was a quote-unquote cocky guy who blew a kiss to a pitcher after hitting a home run when he was 18 years old in the minor leagues. The guy who had benches clearing brawls because of what he did at the plate. Well, now in today's game, everybody celebrates. And I think Bryce Harper was part of that issue there. Not the issue, part of the solution. Bryce Harper is great for baseball. That is something I cannot deny. He is why the game is so much more fun, in my opinion, nowadays. He was the first guy to really kind of do that. And he did it at a young age, by the way. And also, he could do it because he was so damn good. So Bryce Harper, he cracks number 4. In the 2015 season, which he won MVP here, and of course the Nationals missed the playoffs that year, Bryce Harper was phenomenal. Out of this world. He is, in really 2015 as a whole, and just what he meant to this organization when he was with us, he has to make your top 5. He just has to. Number 3, this is where it gets a little bit dicey, in my opinion, where I could get in a little bit of trouble. Juan Soto. Juan Soto is the best player to ever grace the Washington Nationals. He is the best player that has ever worn this jersey. And yes, you might be saying, what about Max Scherzer? What about Ryan Zimmerman, who is a career Washington National? What about Bryce Harper, who won an MVP? Juan Soto never did that. Juan Soto, listen, he is a future Hall of Famer. You knew he was going to be a future Hall of Famer back in 2019. And even then, the first few months of his rookie season, you could tell this guy was going to be, number 1, impactful, and number 2, different. Talking about Juan Soto, let's just get into it. His presence at the plate is something that we have never seen before in this generation. Number 2, everything this guy does at the plate is at the peak of his powers across all of baseball. There is no better hitter in the game than Juan Soto. He can hit for power. He's got the hit tool. He can, as from the left side of the plate, he can hit the ball all the way to left field and have it go 410 feet. There is nothing this guy can't do at the plate. And what he was with the Washington Nationals, in my opinion, was the best version of Juan Soto from what we have seen. In 2020, that year when he was COVID struck, he should have won MVP. If you played 162 games and it was a normal season, he would have had record-breaking numbers where he probably would have hit 40-plus home runs. He would have had maybe like 120 RBIs, something insane like that. He would have won a batting title. He would have maybe even won a triple crown at the rate that he was going at. And he was simply the best hitter in all of baseball then. And he was just 21 years old. Juan Soto is the best player to wear a Washington Nationals jersey. It's hard to leave that off the list when you're talking about meaningful and impactful Washington Nationals players. Again, this is the best player that we have ever seen in DC. And in my opinion, you probably will never see someone better than Juan Soto here in DC. And that's not to say that, like, oh, we're never going to get anyone who's going to be a great player again. No. This guy is considered to be the Ted Williams of this generation. An all-star, all-decade, all-century kind of player. One of the best players and best hitters in baseball that you will ever see. How can you leave him off a top 5 most impactful Nationals over the last decade? You can't. So that is why he's number 3 on this list. Number 2, Max Scherzer. I think Max Scherzer was really just the purest of joy. You get to see him go out there every 5 days. You knew that you were getting 6+ innings of 2 earned runs and 8+ strikeouts every single time. No doubt about it. He was always healthy. He would go out there with a fiery attitude that you've just simply never seen from a pitcher. And when he did that, that's when he was at his best. The black eye game, where he got the black eye after trying to bunt during warm-ups and batting practice, and the ball hit him in the nose, broke his nose, gave him a black eye. He came out the next day and threw a complete gem. The no-hitter, the 20 punchies against the Detroit Tigers, his former team. The should-have-been perfect game when Jose Tabata from the Pittsburgh Pirates leaned in and ruined that perfect game, which should have been a perfect game. Max Scherzer has all of the highlights. He has been here through the ups and the downs from 2015 all the way through halfway of 2021. Max Scherzer is the best pitcher that we will ever see wear a Washington Nationals hat here. Again, can you leave that off the list of a top 5 most meaningful Washington Nationals and impactful Nationals, whichever way you want to look at it? Max Scherzer is the second best player to ever wear a Washington Nationals hat, and that is just behind Juan Soto. Multiple Cy Youngs, he finished top 3 in the Cy Young race, like 5 different seasons with us. One of the best pitchers of the last decade plus, and you can't really leave Max Scherzer off any single list out there. He's going to be a surefire Hall of Famer, World Series champion, pitched in Game 7 of the World Series, and again, was shut down really throughout his entirety of his career here in DC. Awesome, generational kind of player. Max Scherzer at number 2. That leaves us to number 1. It's not going to be Jason Worth. It's going to be Steven Strasburg. I think Steven Strasburg, for everything that we said about Bryce Harper just a few minutes ago, Steven Strasburg is right there with Bryce. The first round pick back in 2009, first overall pick, generational prospect, someone that we have never seen before, pumping 100 miles per hour, coming out of college, and was just absolutely filthy. Steven Strasburg was the first guy that it kind of made you cool to be a Washington Nationals fan. And if you know what I'm saying, like, think of like the Yankees when they got Aaron Judge coming out of the minor leagues. It was cool to be it's always been cool to be a Yankees fan, but still, when you have that special something, all of a sudden the cologne around your team smells a little bit better. That's what Steven Strasburg did to the Washington Nationals. And not even to mention, when it mattered most, who was always there? Who was there in the postseason to shut down coming out of the bullpen, whether it's against the Brewers in the wild card game, or if it's Game 6 of the World Series when it's win or go home, and you have Steven Strasburg in the month going 8+ innings and just completely shutting down the Houston Astros. That is what Steven Strasburg was. He was the MVP of the World Series. When he was healthy, one of the best pitchers in all of baseball. He was really just outdated by Max Scherzer, who was right in front of him, who is going to be a surefire Hall of Famer. Strasburg won't reach the Hall of Fame, but if he had a healthy career and, there would be discussions of it. The guy totally reinvented himself from a 100-mile-per-hour flame-throwing guy back in 2010 to when he was in 2019, getting people to swing and miss in his one of the nastiest changeups you'll ever see, and also winning the World Series MVP. This guy is the most meaningful Washington National ever, in my opinion. And it's unfortunate because, again, he's still under contract here. He still should be pitching for the Nats, but as injuries piled up, he had to call it a career, and now we sit here without Steven Strasburg, but that does not take away why he is the most meaningful Washington National in the history of this organization. Thank you all for making Locked On Nats your first listen. Next, let's talk about Joc Pederson and why this could be a match made in heaven for the Nationals. But before we do that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and I have told you guys you have to get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can check out the latest stats, you live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets this week. And you've got the Eagles going against the Commanders. I've got a Jaden Daniels anytime touchdown score, and as well as Saquon Barkley, unfortunately. Visit FanDuel.com to join today, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That is FanDuel.com, and never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NFL. And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Well, it is no headline here, but we all know this. It has been a quiet offseason for the Washington Nationals. But let's make this offseason maybe a little bit more fun. Let's sign a major league player, shall we? We've talked about Pete Alonso. We've talked about Christian Walker. We've talked about Max Fried. Well, he's gone. We've talked about Corbin Burns. That ain't going to happen. We've talked about it all. What we have not talked about is Joc Pederson. And I think he fits exactly what the Washington Nationals need. Let's get into the needs. Power. This guy's going to hit 20-plus home runs every single season if he is healthy, which he has been relatively healthy over the last few years. If you look into it, a two-time World Series champion with the Braves back in 2021 and as well as the Dodgers back in 2020. Joc Pederson fits that kind of role where the mid-30s kind of guy, left-handed bat, he can hit for power. He has been there and done that on the biggest stage in the World Series with Atlanta and as well as the Dodgers. And he has just been relatively consistent and has stayed pretty damn healthy throughout his career, has been an all-star. He fits what the Nationals need. And also, it's realistic. He just opted out of his contract when he had a mutual option with the Diamondbacks this year. He's probably going to be looking for a contract within, 15 AAV, somewhere in that range. Here's the thing, though. He was an outfielder at one point in time, a pretty good outfielder as well. But now he sits here today as a DH. He did not put on his glove a single time this last year for the Diamondbacks. That's a little concerning. Now, the Nationals, luckily for them, you just need someone who needs to hit for power. And I think Joc Pederson, while there are better options out there, if you're going to be shopping in that bucket, he would be a pretty good one. If you're going to miss out on Christian Walker, if you're going to miss out on, name that power bat like a Pete Alonso, then I think Joc Pederson would kind of be someone who would make sense for this team. And they should go after him, by the way. He just came off a season where he hit 23 home runs and 64 RBIs and batting .275 with a .515 slug, a .908 OPS. This is someone who has extra base hits for days. He's got power. He's got a little bit of a swagger, but also he's got that veteran presence and someone who has won a World Series before, not once, but twice. You need leadership. Now, Joc Pederson, when I think of him, I don't think of a veteran leader type. That's really more so a Christian Walker and a Pete Alonso there. But he is still certainly someone who could fit that role here in DC. He's kind of has that, he's rough around the edges, in which the Nationals have always kind of liked those players, whether it be Jesse Winker last year, Bryce Harper in the 2010s, Max Scherzer as well. He kind of fits that role there, where he's that leader where the Nationals need, and also Jason Worth, if we're going to throw in leaders in that category. I think Pederson, while we don't really talk about him too much, he does kind of fit what the Nationals want. A power bat that's going to hit home runs from the left side of the plate, and also someone who could be a leader in this clubhouse. And if you look at his numbers from Baseball Savant, they were really impressive last year. He had an expecting slugging in the 90th percentile, so one of the best in all of baseball. His average exit velo was the 93rd percentile. His barrel percentage up in the 87th percentile. His hard hit percentage in the 79th percentile. His bat speed, 76th percentile. His walk rate in the 94th percentile. This fits what the Nationals kind of need at this point. And if he is going to play 162 games, which he should, if he is healthy, which he is healthy, then this just is a match made in heaven, in my opinion. Because number one, he's not going to be ultra expensive. I think Christian Walker could probably demand more on an open market, considering that he's a Gold Glove caliber guy at first base. And also, he can hit for power just like Joc Pederson does. But let's say you do miss out on a Christian Walker type. which is very possible, by the way. Christian Walker has interest coming from the Yankees, and as well as other teams out there who could come out of nowhere and sign him. You could easily miss out on Christian Walker, but also this. You just need a power bat. And beggars cannot be choosers, and right now, the Nationals, they are beggars. They need help. I think you could easily overspend on a Jock Peterson type, which may not be ideal, but it shows that the Nationals are addressing their needs. I'd be more than happy for the Nationals to overspend on someone like a Jock Peterson. Now, would it kind of be a little bit sideways? Could it go sideways? It sure can. But still, sitting here today, you just need help. And the Nationals, the way that they're going to get help is by signing veteran talent, signing guys who have been in the postseason before, someone who could be a leader in this clubhouse, and hopefully you ink them to a multi-year deal to not just help this team in 2025, but also in 2026 and 2027. Jock Peterson's not the sexiest name out there, but he would make sense for this Nationals team, and I would not be surprised if they try to pivot that way and get him and lock him up as the DH. But now, could the Nats seek a 2019 Washington National in free agency? You may know the name. I'll tell you who that is after we tell you about our friends at SelectQuote. The World Series, Super Bowl, the Olympics, the world's top athletes get to play in these top-level sporting events thanks to one thing: teamwork. And teamwork can also protect your financial legacy and your family's future. SelectQuote's licensed insurance agents are the perfect teammates when shopping for customized, affordable life insurance. They can find you the right policy to keep your financial legacy safely in your family's end zone. And of course, I can tell you this about the importance of having strategies to win in both sports and life. And that leading strategy for life is having the best life insurance on your bench with SelectQuote to protect your legacy and your family's future. For example, in sports, winning is everything. That's why you always need a good strategy to keep you moving towards the goalpost. Winning strategies for life are just as important. That's why on my team, I have life insurance through SelectQuote to protect my legacy and my family's financial future. SelectQuote is one of America's insurance brokers with nearly 40 years of experience, helping over 2 million customers find over $700 billion in coverage since 1985. And of course, get the right life insurance for you for less at selectquote.com/lockedon. Go to selectquote.com/lockedon today to get started. That's selectquote.com/lockedon. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Let's have a little bit of fun. Could the Washington Nationals seek to bring back a 2019 world champ? Who is that 2019 world champ? Well, he's a free agent, and he goes by the name of Max Scherzer. I don't think the Nationals will seek this, but it is kind of fun to throw that out there. He's coming off an injury-rattled season with the Texas Rangers, and listen, Max Scherzer's best days are behind him. He's 40 years old. He doesn't have that much left in the tank, but going back to what we were saying about Jock Peterson, you need a veteran leader who has been there and who has done that. And that goes in the Nationals lineup. Let's talk about it from a starting pitching perspective, though. You have Jake Irvin, Mackenzie Gore, Josiah Gray, Cade Cavalli, Mitchell Parker, DJ Hers. These are all wildly young guys. You need to have some veteran presence in that rotation. I expect Trevor Williams to be long gone. At some point, someone will sign him in free agency. And to play that fireman role, he's not really that piece that you're really looking for, even though he was kind of pretty solid in that role this past season. But if the Nationals wanted to do that, Max Scherzer would make sense. He's got some familiarity with Davey Martinez, Mike Rizzo, president of baseball ops, and guys in this organization already. I could definitely see them trying to go after a Max Scherzer yet again. But I also don't think it makes sense for the Nationals, and as well as Max Scherzer. Number one, he's just going to cost too much money. And number two, I just feel like his best days are behind him. But I do think it's kind of fun to throw that out there. And I wanted to mention that real quick, as he is a free agent, and it would be cool to see him back here in DC. But of course, I will catch you guys on the flip side. Have a good one. Go Nats.